Hey guys, what is up, and I welcome each and every one of you to a new League of Legends video. So today we'll be taking a look at the biggest changes coming next patch 9.4 in just a couple of days. There is a lot to cover, so as usual, if you guys end up enjoying this video, then do not forget to hit that like button, but let's not waste any more time and just jump right into it. So starting things off, believe it or not, is actually going to be an Azir buff. The attack speed growth has been increased for Azir by double. Now, this is actually a bit more impactful than you may think because, again, don't forget, it's talking about the actual growth, right? Not just his base attack speed. So this means Azir will scale even harder and he'll scale a little bit faster in the game as well, which is actually very, very important for the champion. Not the biggest buff in the world, but he's also a champion where you have to be very cautious with literally any changes that you do to him. Moving along very quickly, we have some changes coming over to NERFS, specifically to his Mega NERF form, where the armor growth and the MR growth have both been increased. This is actually not a bad change as well because, of course, Mega NERF now will be even more tankier, which is, of course, what you kind of want when you're in that form. So going in for spicy engages and kind of being able to stand in the front line and tank some damage, he's going to be a lot more durable and a lot better to even tower dive with. Following this, we have some buffs coming over to Hecarim, a champion that has not been seeing too many changes recently. The buffs are as follows. Starting off with his Q ability Rampage, the mana cost on this ability has been overall lowered at the earlier ranks, but still the same by rank 5. And then his E ability Devastating Charge, the cooldown has also been lowered at the earlier ranks, but the same cooldown by rank 5. So all in all, a little bit of a buff to his early and potentially a little bit of his mid game, but nothing too crazy. But the next nerf is a nerf that I'm sure a lot of us have been waiting for, and it's going to be towards Karthus. Now, the Karthus nerf is as follows. His Q ability, Lay Waste, the base damage and the isolated base damage have both been overall lowered. Now, this is good, of course, if you're playing him mid lane or top lane even, or even down in the bot lane, but it's also good because it will nerf his jungle clear as well, since naturally he usually uses his Q ability to clear the jungle in general. He should also be getting a nerf to his ultimate Requiem, where the damage is going to be lowered by 50, the base damage, in every single level. But I'm not 100% sure if this specific change is actually going to be making it to the live servers or not, so bear with me. Next, we have some nerfs coming over to arguably the best AD carry at the moment, or at least one of them, Lucian. It's going to be a nerf to his W, which at first might sound weird, but there is a reason behind it. So, the nerf is as follows. The mana cost has been increased by 20 at all ranks, so it now costs 70 in general, and the damage has also been lowered at every single rank as well. Now, the reason his W is getting nerfed instead of the other abilities is because a lot of people level 1 actually get their W first, right? Because it's a very, very strong ability, has good base damage, very easy to CS with the first 3 minions, and it's AoE, right? Which is very easy to hit. And people also tend to put a few points into the W as well before they continue on maxing their Q instead. Again, for similar reasons, AoE, easy to hit, and is just overall powerful, plus the movement speed it offers is also very, very useful. Moving along, we have some buffs coming over to Reksai, a jungler that I'm sure a lot of us have not been seeing too often. So the buffs are as follows. The Fury Bar on Reksai now changes colors from yellow to red when full, which is just a nice kind of quality of life change. But moving on to her Q ability, specifically the Burrowed Q, it now has a new effect that generates 25 Fury if it hits a champion, which is actually a lot bigger than you would think, because the biggest thing about Reksai is to get the Fury to 100 to get that true damage from the E ability, and that's kind of how the burst works. Well, now with this, you'll be getting that burst much faster and it'll be a lot stronger. But speaking of being burrowed underground, well, now you also have her W that has kind of a bit louder effects for whenever you're sensing a champion. So it's going to be a lot easier to determine if it's a champion or not. And the final change is towards her ultimate, where now Reksai becomes untargetable at the start of casting rather than after casting, so it'll be a little bit easier to dodge any certain abilities. But on top of this, it's a lot harder for people to actually dodge your ultimate now. They'll have to teleport a much larger distance of about 1,000 units now. So all in all, I have to say, some pretty decent changes coming over to Reksai, and if you're a Reksai player, I feel like you should be very happy. Next up, we have some changes to the newest champion in League of Legends, Silas. And the first change is going to be towards his Q ability, where apparently the second part of the Q, which leaves that little AoE kind of mark on the ground that pops after about a half a second or so, it should be a lot more reliable to actually land that part, which is going to be obviously very, very good for Silas. And I also think this might open up new rune options, like for instance, maxing Q and taking Arcane Comet in the lane, because of just how much more reliable the Q now will be to land. But moving along, it's not all good news for Silas, because his W, Kingslayer, while the heal on this ability is just overall being lowered, but only the flat amount, so it's not too crazy because by rank 5 it's only 20 less, which I honestly think is not enough. Granted, a lot of people do max their W first now just because of how busted the ability is. Maybe at the point in the game where you finally get the W to rank 5, it's still fairly early, so the 20 is going to be a little bit impactful, but as you continue playing the game, I feel like that's going to be less and less impactful, so a little bit of a slap on the wrist for Silas here. Next up, some quick changes coming over to Thresh is going to be towards his Q ability, where the mana cost is being increased and the cooldown is also being increased by 4 seconds at rank 1, which is actually quite a lot. Which is also kind of weird because I swear they just somewhat recently buffed Thresh in pretty much the opposite way that they're currently nerfing him. But then there's Trundle. Now Trundle is going to be getting a buff towards his W Frozen Domain, which the mana cost is being lowered by 20, which is not bad, and the bonus attack speed is being changed to now giving him 100% by rank 5. Now correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like most people max their W on Trundle last, so I don't know if this will actually be a good buff or a bad buff. Since level 1, I mean, you still have the 20% attack speed, which is the same. The only thing you're getting is just a 20 less mana. So I'm kind of curious to see if this will change the order that you want to max Trundle's abilities on to get that 100% attack speed now rather than the 80 a lot sooner. But let's move on to the next change, and it's going to be a fairly large nerf coming over to Urgot. Now, the first of which is going to be his Q with the Corrosive Charge. The mana cost is being increased by 20, which, I mean, okay, kind of sucks. But as we move on to his W, this is where things get pretty serious. So the mana cost is also being changed here to now being 65 at all ranks rather than 45 rank 1 and then going up to 65. But the biggest change is this. His shield strength is now lowered. So it only starts at 30 rather than 60 and only goes up to 150 rather than 180. On top of this, it is also now halved in the amount it scales off of your bonus HP, so now only being 15%. This is quite a significant nerf to his W because, I mean, to be fair, it was quite abusable and it was very, very powerful, but this will make the shield a lot less impactful. So I'm very curious to see how much this will affect Urgot and how much it will lower his win rate. Moving along, we have some changes coming over to Varus, specifically towards his Q ability, Piercing Arrow. The damage increase over the charge has been now changed from 0 to 50 to now being 0 to 75%, which also affects his W's active percent missing HP. I'll be honest, I completely forgot Varus even existed as a champion because you just never see him anymore, so hopefully this will bring him back into line a little bit more. Now here's a change that I'm sure a lot of people are going to be happy and upset about at the same time, just depends on if you play the champion. Yasuo, he is getting a nerf, and I'm sure not a lot of people are surprised because he gained huge power since the changes to the crit items, specifically with Static Shift and IE. Regardless, the nerf is as follows. His base AD is being lowered by 3, which of course is pretty impactful since it'll lower his overall damage output in general across the boards, but his Q with the Steel Tempest, the crit damage is being lowered by 20% as well. All in all, some pretty significant nerfs coming over to Yasuo, to be completely honest. I mean, I don't think this will gut the champion, but this should definitely affect him a decent amount and not make him just a complete powerhouse with the new crit items. And the final change coming over to champions for this video is going to be to my boy Zed. Now we've talked about it before, but I'll talk about it again. His attack speed growth per level is being increased by just over 1%, but again, keep in mind, it's the attack speed growth, not the flat attack speed, so it'll scale a little bit better now. But moving on to his Q ability, they actually changed it just a tad from what they had before, to where now it doesn't actually get reduced in damage, for the base damage at least, as you rank it up rank 4 and 5. In fact, it is actually higher now at every single rank by 10, while still maintaining the extra 10% bonus AD ratio on the Q ability, so I have to say, this is looking a lot better of a change. But then we move on to his W, where the recast range on this ability, which, taking the shadow, the second effect of it, is now increased by a lot. I mean, 1950 is massive. It apparently also now matches the range that it can mimic spells, so which is pretty damn sweet because you can always fire the Q ability when you're really far away from the shadow and get that finished kill, which is always satisfying to do. But at the moment with Zed, if you're walking away a little too far from the shadow, you actually can't throw the Q from the shadow because you're too far, and sometimes it's missed opportunities. But it doesn't end there just yet because the cooldown on his W is also being lowered at the earlier ranks to kind of buff up his laning phase a little bit more. But unfortunately for Zed, it's not all good news because moving on to his ultimate, Death Mark, the passive effect Reaper of Shadows is completely removed, and this was that passive effect that where Zed kills a target, you'll get that extra bonus AD. No longer is that a thing. So I'm not gonna lie, at the end of the day, it is somewhat of a bittersweet change where it does actually kind of suck that we lose that flat AD from the ultimate because, I mean, that thing was always very useful, especially if you ever face a Jhin. You can get quite a bit of AD from that, but I mean, the other changes are also looking quite good, so it's kind of hard to tell if it's a buff or a nerf overall. We'll just have to see when it comes to the live servers. Now moving on to some final quick changes, starting with Essence Reaver, the AD is being increased by 5, but the 20% CDR that this item offers is now considered a unique passive because people were apparently double stacking this item to get just the most absurd stats you could possibly imagine. I mean, from 2 items you get not only 120 AD, you get 50% crit chance, you get 40% CDR. I mean, it was pretty ridiculous. But moving along to the other ADC items, we have the Kerch's Shard, Rapid Fire Cannon, Static Shift, and Storm Razor. All of these effects now have the Energized effect combined into one. So what that really means is, well, now you can't really have all these items stacking together and getting the damage procs from each of them individually. Instead, now it'll take whichever one is dealing the most damage and do that one's damage only. But with that being said, I mean, you can still get Rapid Fire Cannon for the increase in range. I mean, that's still a thing. You can still get Static Shift for the lightning and stuff. I mean, that's also a thing. But when it comes to the damage specifically, only the highest one will deal its damage. And the final actual change we have is going to be the rework of Conqueror. Now, Conqueror is essentially the old Fervor of Battle combined with the current Conqueror, put into a blender, and that's what we have at the moment. It is honestly the most overtuned keystone I have seen in a very, very long time, and I honestly hope that Riot either changes it before it comes out to the live servers, or decides to scrap it for this patch and do some more testing, because please, for the love of God, test it a little bit more. I will tell you right now, if this keystone comes out the way it is, it will literally be League of Conqueror. Everybody is going to be running this keystone because of just how disgustingly busted it is. And last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, we have some visual updates coming over to 3 champions, being Riven, Olaf, and Kennen. And my goodness, do these updates look fantastic. It looks super sexy now. And of course, we also have the 2 new skins coming out, kind of a new skin line that Riot is testing out. Papercraft Anivia and Papercraft Nunu and Willem. So let me know what you think about them down below. But either way, guys, that is going to be about it for this video. There you have it, some massive changes coming over to the next patch. Let me know what you think about these changes down below. Let me know which of them you think is going to be the most impactful, or which one you're a little bit worried about. But either way, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, then don't forget to hit that like button, share with your friends and all that good stuff, and I'll see you for the next one. Peace.